What's up guys, Colby Cheese here with a guide for everyone on how to create your own Path of Exile builds. I get asked questions a lot about, hey, how do I do the best newbie build, or what's a good build for new characters, and like how can you give me a build tree for your certain setup that you did, and can you look at my skill tree so I don't really know what I'm doing, and all these kind of questions about the skill tree because let's face it, the game is quite complex and there's a lot to it. However, I don't think a lot of people give themselves a chance to actually learn how to theorycraft in this game. And I want to go ahead and show you how I theorycraft my builds for the game. And hopefully that will help you guys out with your own builds and in the future creating your own setups so that you won't be lost whenever you want to do something on your own without having to go and ask all of your friends or go on a stream and just hope that someone gives you that right build, or without having to copy someone else's build, you know. Something that you can make as your own. So let's go ahead and get started on how to actually theorycraft and exactly what I do. For this particular example, I'm going to show you guys how to theorycraft. Well, I'm going to go ahead and theorycraft a new build that I would like to do in the future. So I've done a lot of melee builds, and I've done this little ranger build here, which is kind of like a mix between a ranger and a caster. And for my next character, I would like to do a pure spellcaster build, something from the Templar, because not a lot of people play the Templar. But that's not really more important. More important is learning which skill you want to use. So I know I want to play a caster, and so I'm thinking something along the lines of like Cold Snap or Firestorm, because they did buff the fire spells. So maybe like a Firestorm and Fireball ability would be something fun to do. So the first step when you're creating your own build is to go in and decide which ability that you want to use and what kind of style of gameplay that you want. Do you want to do like a ranger and use arrows, lightning arrows, split arrows, something like that? Would you like to do melee abilities, or would you like to do caster? That's the first thing. The next thing you want to do is to start with the class that has the most nodes on the tree that are close by, which can complement your chosen ability and playstyle. So let's go ahead and take a look at the skill tree real fast. Okay, so I'm taking a look at the passive tree on the website right now, and this is actually what I use to theorycraft builds. Some people use an offline calculator, but I'll show you why I like to use the skill tree here in just a second. So we know that I'm going to do a spellcaster. Most spellcaster builds are best done with either the Templar or the Witch, save for a few different cases. The reason for that is because the Witch and the Templar are close to a lot of the spell damage nodes, as well as the area nodes where you can increase the area of your spells. You can also easily come over to the shadow side if you want to grab a bunch of crit, if you want to add in crit to your spell build. You can also get up here for chaos inoculation, which I'm not going to worry about right now. That's a more complicated build. And you can do Eldritch Battery if you want to do that. You've also got access to a lot of energy shield nodes, and so overall it's a good starting point for spellcaster builds. I don't really like to start with Witch too much because the Witch has a crappy starting area, and the Templar has a lot more access to starting areas that are good for him. The Witch is good if you're going to be doing pure Summoner, because she's close to all the Summoner nodes. But in this particular case, for my setup, I would like to do a Fireball, Firestorm, Templar. So let's go ahead and click on the Templar and theorycraft a build around that setup. So the idea is that whenever you start theorycrafting your build, you want to begin by collecting as many defense nodes as you can. A general rule of thumb is to hit around you want to say maybe like 250% HP on most builds. 300% would be a good number if you actually are going to be going for a melee type setup. Now, you may be asking, well, how do I actually know how many percentage nodes I have in terms of health? Well, let me go ahead and just click a few health nodes right here that you would kind of, this is, let's say you're just starting to level up. So how do you know how much health you have? So I'm going to show you a cool trick. So we're on the passive tree from the website. Now I'm going to go to another website, and I've got this one saved here. And I'll put the link in the description down below, but the website is called pathofpoe.com, and you can go to the tools and passive tree calculator. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy paste the skill tree that I've started here into this little section right here and do parse passive tree. And you'll see so far I've got 34% increased max life and a little bit of max energy shield, and it shows you all the other things that I've got on the tree. And this is what I like to do, is create somewhat of my build and then make sure that I have all of the stuff that I want in order for that build to work out. So now that you can see how to actually decide if you have enough health, let's go ahead and try and create a build that has enough HP and goes along the path that has also the damage nodes that we want. So again, the idea is to go for the defense first, and along the tree try and have your damage nodes close by to those defense nodes. So I'm going to go ahead and come down here. Since this build is going to be a caster, it's most likely going to need a lot of blue gems, so I'm probably going to be picking up energy shield and armor gear, which means that I can probably do some sort of hybrid setup. That way I can get energy shield and health, and I'll be able to actually go through the tree, pick up all of the armor energy shield nodes here. That's a good amount of defense. I'll also pick up all the health along the way as much as possible. Let's see here. So I've got area nodes because I know that Firestorm and Fireball both will benefit from area. So let's see. We've got area nodes right here. I may want to go for this one, cast speed. I want to be able to cast. Mana regen is also important for casters, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up these mana regen nodes right there. That ought to be good. We've got some health nodes over here. Let's go ahead and move up this direction. We're going to pick up some more health from this section. 18% is always good. And right now I'm not really putting a lot of thought into this extremely well. I just know that there's going to be health nodes and damage nodes along this direction. So I want to go for more area nodes, like from the witch tree. So let's go ahead and go down this direction, since I can easily grab the fire nodes and some elemental damage nodes along the way. We can grab spell damage, and then we'll come back up here, grab more area. And we know that there's fire damage here, so let's go ahead and pick up fire damage along the way. And I could definitely do burning, but I don't think Firestorm is going to do large high-end damage to create lots of burning. So this is going to be more of a straight-up fire damage build than burning, so I'm not going to pick up those burning nodes. Okay, so let's go back out of the tree this direction and head towards, I guess Deep Wisdom ought to be fine. I mean, it's along the way. We'll keep going towards the health nodes here. I'm going to keep picking up all the HP along the tree, and there's some more health along this direction. And we can do, and I'm just kind of doing this on the fly. I haven't planned this out ahead of time. Let's come back down this way, and let's grab the health nodes right over here. And right now we're at about 78 points. So the idea is that you're going to Theorycraft for the highest level that you believe you can reach on your character. So if you've only, you know for sure, if you've reached level 80 on your last character, that you can probably get level 80 again. So Theorycraft to build for a level 80 character. If you've only reached level 30, then well, maybe you're not really going to be in the stage of Theorycrafting very much at all. But this is more for someone who's probably going to get to maps, and you're going to be Theorycrafting builds for that. Me, I've gotten to around level 90, so I'm going to be Theorycrafting a build around level 90. That's around 106 points in that range. So I'm going to go ahead and continue crafting for that. So let's say we're doing a hybrid build. I might as well go ahead and pick up that node. That's a really good node along the way for energy shields. And so far, I've picked up a decent amount of health. I probably want to get at least one regen node in case I do a map with like some chaos damage, and it's nice to have a little bit of regen. I don't like spending points on regen for most other builds, but it's nice to have at least one regen node. Let's go ahead and see where we're at so far. And I'm only at 80 points, so I have a lot. Wow, so I'm already up to 196% increased max life. I've also got 136% increased max ES. So if I'm doing a hybrid build, I can afford to have a little bit less HP. You still want to have at least around 4, maybe 5,000, well, at least like 4,000 HP if you can, because you're going to do a chaos damage map eventually, and that will cause your energy shield to go down to 0, and you won't have that buffer. So in order to make this work out, you want to make sure and have at least about 4,000 HPs, and I think you can get there with 200% max life. But I want to go ahead and see if I can find more health nodes along the tree, which I guess I would have to come down to the witch area. So let's do this. Let's come in, and then I guess along the way we'll grab more ES from that as well. So there's some health there. We're up to 87 points, and at this point I can go ahead and take a look at it again. I might come down and grab some aura reservation nodes. I have to start thinking about my auras as well. Probably going to only be able to run one aura on my current mana pool without getting more mana, or reservation nodes. So I would like to see if I can run 2 auras. So let's go ahead and grab some aura nodes since I'm along. I mean, they're already along the tree. That brings me up to 94 points. So that's going to give me a lot of increased aura reservation, which a lot of builds don't really have that option of doing. But since I'm in the Witch and the Templar area, I'm really close by, and that makes it possible. If I wanted to, I can grab more defense by picking up shield nodes here. Those are really close, so more shield block if necessary. I would have to think about that whenever I start Theorycraft and like what items I'm going to use and things like that. So let's just take a look at what else I can do here. Can I pick up more health nodes anywhere else? I may actually be able to pick up, let's see, elemental damage right here. That might be nice. What is another big one? Mana and intelligence. I may come up 2 points for that, but whenever you take up these big nodes, you're like, oh well, that's 10 points, or that's 10%. That's a pretty good node. But since I'm not right next to it, I would actually have to take 2 nodes. So you divide that in half. That's actually 5% per node. Maybe that's not very efficient, because for 5% per node, I could have easily grabbed, something else along the way. Maybe these nodes over here, perhaps. I might want to grab crit. I'm not really thinking of going for a crit build, but if I wanted to start picking up crit nodes, I still have extra points. So I can go ahead and grab some of these, like crit multiplier, crit chance, crit multiplier for spells, and then I can come down and grab a extra damage node, and then the 5% chance to ignite. That might be an idea. You don't have to do full crit build for crit to work out, but usually if you want to do a crit build, you want to pick up a lot of crit nodes for it to be most effective. So at this point, I don't really have a lot more nodes for HP. I picked up pretty much everything along the tree. If I wanted to, I could actually come down, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points for mana and life. Those are not terrible, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can come down both sides if I wanted to. So let's just Theorycraft. If I want more mana and health, these are pretty good nodes. That's 106 points, so that's around level 90 right there. And I can always spec out of these. If I don't like these crit nodes here, I can get rid of those, and then I can get just more health and mana. Depends on what I want. Do I need more health and mana, or do I need more damage? So that's pretty much at that level. I can probably unspec if I don't like these nodes here and go for these nodes here. So let's go ahead and copy paste what I have currently. So this is probably the more defensive setup. That's 256% life with 174%. That's a really tanky build. I have a lot of life for a caster and a lot of ES buffer as well. So this would be an extremely nice build to do with Firestorm. You've got both area nodes. You've got a decent amount of spell damage. Let's see, how much spell damage do I have? I've got lots of armor as well. Don't discount that. Resists are okay. Might have to get quite a bit of resist from gear. We're sitting at 66 fire, 20 spell, 20 more area damage, 16 more spell damage, and then LE damage with just a little bit of cast speed. So that's actually pretty good. I'm going to get quite a bit of damage off of Firestorm and Fireball with this particular build. And of course, you can actually adapt this. You can do like a cold build, I guess, if you were using Ramirez Banquet with Cold Snap, which is something they added in. Now, as far as uniques that you use with builds, this is something that you can do. You don't really know which unique you're going to be using with a build, but if you need to do a specific unique, that comes with experience by knowing which uniques are in the game. In my case, I'm like, well, I want something that has extra area damage, so I can use a Carcass Jack. We know that Carcass Jack has extra area damage, so maybe I can throw a Carcass Jack into my build. I don't know if it would be necessary, but it would benefit the build. But I'm not going to really talk about a build that uses uniques so much. That just comes with experience, as I say. The main thing is learning to just go along the builds tree and pick up as many health nodes as you can, and then, like I said, the damage nodes that are along the way. So this looks like a pretty solid build. The next thing that you would like to do is to Theorycraft for the gems and stuff that you're going to be using. So what I like to do is pull up a Google Docs, and I'll use just like a spreadsheet from Google Docs. So for this character, I'm going to be doing a Firestorm Templar, right? Okay. And I just write down chest, helm, gloves, boots, weapon, shield, so that I can figure out which gems I'd like to use. And this part's, you can always change around and figure out later on, but we're going to be using Firestorm. Pretty sure that we can use like conk effects, and we can use increased area perhaps, and you're most likely going to be doing fire penetration for adding some extra damage to that. So far, that is a 4 link right there. And I'm sure you can add more to it. And well, so you have 2 more links, but I'm just going to say, let's just Theorycraft, that works for a 4 link right there, and you're probably going to be doing good damage. Alright, so a helm, you're going to probably put your auras in, something like your helm or your gloves. So we're going to be doing, maybe do discipline. Not a lot of people run discipline, so you can be the one running discipline. You can run a You can run a build with Purity as well. Maybe Purity of Fire, Purity of Lightning, just Purity of Elements. That'll help you out with your resist. And those are your two auras, aura node right there. You may also go ahead and be leveling gems if you're running in a party, which a lot of people are going to be running in party. You can just have other gems leveling, and you can potentially run Discipline as your main, always on skill, and then to complement the party, you're just going to run other auras that just kind of complement them. So you may end up running like an Anger or Wrath, which won't help you out, but that can be good for your party. You can run a Discipline, not Discipline, sorry, you can run, probably not going to be running Grace because that's not going to help you too much. You can run something that's Determination, for example. Not a lot of people run that, so that would help out the party. Pretty much the second aura is going to be something that helps out the party. There's not a lot of auras other than Discipline that's going to help out a spellcaster. So that pretty much is just whatever you want to do at that point. Clarity might be something you run. Clarity is a big one. You want that mana regen. Clarity definitely a big deal. So you may end up running Discipline, Clarity, and perhaps one more on top of that. So that's just something that you're going to play with based on your group composition. And for another spell, you may end up running something along the lines of maybe you want a single target. So you're going to have maybe like a Fireball with LMP, so you can shotgun with that, Conk Effect on that, and Fire Pin. And that would be your single target, for example. So you can run Fireball, LMP, Conk Effect, and Fire Pin. Then you just stand up in the face of monsters and just boom, 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 throw out your fireballs. If you're doing a fire build, you could potentially do like Fire Trap. Of course, Fire Trap's a little bit better with crit, but with this build, you can certainly make it work. Fire Trap, you can do like Conk Effect or like crits on it, Prolif. But really, you're not going to be doing lots of burn damage, so that might not work. I would have to Theorycraft that further. Like I said, it's not a burning build. But this is all just kind of Theorycrafting once again. You might want to have mobility spells, so you're going to have your Lightning Warp on faster cast. That's also something you might actually end up having on your Firestorm as well, faster cast. For like your 5-link, you would figure that out with your Firestorm. You can potentially do that with your Fireball. I think that you might get more benefit out of Fire Pin than Fast Cast. I'm not sure. But once again, that is all just theory crafting and playing around with the different gems. You'll have to level those up and try it out. So Lightning Warp, Faster Cast, and Weapon. So pretty much this is how our Theorycraft builds. You have the gem slots that you're going to be using, and you just kind of put stuff in there that you think might be useful to you, and you're going to be working your build around that. So I know that Firestorm is going to be working out quite nicely with a 5-link, and Fireball works out fine. I've got my auras. I've got some other things that will help me out. I could potentially add something in here that I would use for last hitting that has a culling and rarity on it if I would like to. Weapon, I can add in one other thing. Pretty much this looks like a solid setup though so far. So that is pretty much how I Theorycraft my builds. There's not a lot to it. Most of it comes with experience. I know all of you can't just run in here and quickly just start clicking on buttons and know exactly where you're going, because a lot of this comes down to you're just going to need to know which nodes are which. Like, you're probably going to be just mousing over things a lot of times and reading the reading the stats on here. Let's take a look how much stats I have. I don't have any dex, so I may end up along the line having to pick up a dex node to level up a certain gem that requires dex, or a piece of gear that requires dex. I may end up having to do something like that, because that ends up happening. But that's what these little dex nodes are for, in case you need those extra pieces of dex. You can go ahead and grab those, and that puts me up to 74, and then I could get more from gear and things like that. There's not really much else to talk about. Again, you just need to sit here and play with this, and I've sat here for hours just playing. This is part of the fun for me in the game, is just clicking all these nodes and figuring out what kind of builds I can come up with, and then I'll just save them. I have build ideas, and I'll just kind of save them in different folders and figure out later if I want to actually end up doing that build. Then I'll pull up those build ideas, and then you can kind of make it more efficient later. Let's say you show this to your friend. Maybe they help you save a few points by going a different direction on the tree. And this is definitely not optimized right now. Maybe it's optimized. Maybe this is as good as the build's going to get, but I might be able to save some points or get more health or more damage by doing a different setup on the tree. You know, maybe coming down, getting something else on the tree. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I hope you learned something on how to actually create your own builds in the future. And if you have any questions, you can always come by. Check out my stream at twitch.tv/KolbyCheese. I'm always answering questions for people. And I'll see you around for the next video. Peace out, guys.